Danny was talking about the importance of story, and we have been following the story of the Hebrews who were in slavery in Egypt. And now God has seen their suffering and has called them into liberation, into the wilderness under the leadership of Moses. And in our reading today from Exodus that Gail shared with us, Moses is having a heart-to-heart with God. And Moses is saying, God, we might as well not even continue on if we aren't going to have sure evidence of your presence. And what Moses is asking of God is something that you and I have probably all asked of God at one time or another, because Moses wants something amazing, something supernatural, something that is a knock your socks off moment. And God says, well, it doesn't really work like that. And God says to Moses, you're going to see me. You're going to catch a glimpse of me, but it's not going to be in a direct way. It's going to be in a more indirect way. Today is Laity Sunday. Today is a celebration of how you and I have been ordained for ministry in the waters of our baptism. And you may be saying to yourself, who, me? Ministry? Who, me? Gifts to share? And so this story of Moses gives us an opportunity to reflect on how God calls each and every one of us into ministry. Isn't it interesting that in God's economy, God calls all of who we are, every little bit of who we are? God does not waste anything of who we are. And so God uses experiences that we have had that may at first glance seem completely unrelated to what God is calling us to do. For example, prior to Moses seeing the burning bush and being called to lead the Hebrew people out of Egypt, Moses was herding sheep. Sheep can be obstinate, hard-headed, even stubborn. Isn't it a wonderful thing that Moses had experience herding sheep as he led the Hebrew people out of Egypt and into the wilderness? People who were sometimes obstinate, hard-headed, even stubborn. I don't know how many times I've had people say to me, well, you used to be a nurse, but do you use nursing anymore? And I say, I use it all the time in ministry. God uses all of who we are, including our past experiences, as God calls us into ministry. But that's not all. Moses had killed a man. You and I might think that that would disqualify him for any kind of ministry. And yet God called all of Moses into leading people into the wilderness and into liberation. When I am working with people who have gone through a very difficult time, perhaps a serious illness, perhaps the loss of a loved one, perhaps dealing with an addiction, when I hear them say to me, I want to help other people who are going through what I've gone through, I know that they are stepping into healing. God uses all of who we are, even those parts of us and those parts of our lives that seem less than ideal. But God does another thing too. God revealed to Moses a need, and then God equipped Moses to meet that need. And God reveals to you and to me needs, and God equips us to be in ministry to meet that need. And if you are wondering right now what else God can use, well, I will just say this. God can also use your greatest joy, your greatest passion, your hobby, your delight, as a way of serving God and loving neighbors. For God calls all of us, each part of us, and who we are into ministry, and when we live it out, we give people a glimpse of God, maybe not directly, but certainly indirectly, as they catch God's light in us as we serve others.